I would like to welcome Mr. Madi Jobate and Mr. Mbai to Mingdaw Senior and Secondary School this day, and also I would like to recognize the presence of the principal and the vice principal in the upper and senior secondary school and my colleagues. And I am also honored to be invited here to give a speech, to give a historical speech about the whole idea of Africa Liberation Day. And I am also very happy to hear Mr. Jobate ask very critical historical questions to all of us here. And it is also unfortunate that we are in a school or in a country where history is such that it is not valued. If you call yourself a historian, you are not respected in the society. They see history as one of the most useless fields in our school system. And that is one of the reasons why even those in the science stream are not taught history. And if you don't know your history, you will have no place to go to. Mr. Jobate asked very important questions here before Ghana, Songhai, or Mali Empire. Why is our history suspended there? Why didn't they go further to Egypt? And if you read history, you understand that one of the oldest civilizations in the world was Egypt. And most of the philosophers that he quoted here, the likes of Plato, Pythagoras, Aristotle, to name a few, they all got their education in Egypt. And if you go to Egypt today and Abyssinia, that is Ethiopia, that is where you find the oldest church. The oldest church in the world is found in Egypt. In fact, some historians will tell you civilization, that is human existing, started in Egypt. So why is this day important? It is very important. What happened was, like Emel Ba who read a poem here, talking about when Africa was a young woman. Africa was a society that was very progressive. It was a society that was very stable. It was a society where people respect each other's culture, norms, and values. If I, for instance, take an example of the Manjakos, even today, one of those few ethnic groups that still preserve their culture and tradition. I remember when I was going to Jambur school, there were these two cashew farms. Now, when we close from school, we normally go and steal cashew, but we only steal from one farm. That is Mr. Balalo Bojan's cashew farm. It's an old man from Jambur. There is another cashew farm that is owned by Mandina Mendi from Farato. But Mandina la cashew mbuka osunya. Muna na mbuka osunya. Because we believe that if you steal Mandina's cashew, you will stand there until when he comes. That is African culture, that is African history, and that's African tradition. Such that you don't touch what does not belong to you. And there were people, Africa is such unfortunate that we received many civilizations. One of the first civilizations that came and enslaved us were the Arabs. They took us. The second came the Europeans. The third is our leaders who are still colonizing us. And that is why we know the main problem Africa faces up till today is leadership crisis. And we need to liberate our mind. We start with language. Mr. Jobate made it very clear. Our languages have been described as vernacular. Not only vernacular, but they are made such that you disown your own language, even in the school setting. If you speak your own language, you are punished. There are instances you are asked to pay $5 or $10. There are instances where you are asked to wear a symbol in which there is inscription written, "I am a very stupid student." So this is all meant to kill our culture. The white man was very wise. When he came to Africa, the first thing he did was to deformat the minds of the Africans. Just like when you have a memory card, there is music and other stuff that you don't want. You format it. And that's the first thing the white man did. He deformatted the minds of the African and installed one app, and that app is their language. Once you express yourself in foreign tongues, you are still decolonized. And that is why Ngugi wa Thiong'o, a Kenyan writer, wrote and said, Africa needs to decolonize her mind. And that is why we are seated here today. Because I am not the only one in the panel, I don't want to colonize the discussion. I will pass the mic to Mr. Sanya.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jallow. Okay, we will go next to my political scientist, Mr. Sanyan.
Good morning, my able principal, Madam Kwanjiraba, Vice Principal, Mr. Mbaro, my members of staff, guest speakers, and my co-panelists, distinguished boys and girls. Well, I'm not here to give you any synopsis on history, but rather I'll be giving logic so as to solve problems. And to begin with, I'm going to demonstrate a short logic scenario. And this, I want to do it now. And after which, I'll go ahead to bring about consciousness, which I'm going to use as my barometer to grace the occasion of African Liberation Day. Here, I start. Common half. Common half. Common half. Common half. Oh, thank you very much. And we did not discuss it. Thank you very much. Africa. When you look at Africa, logic is something that we should not play with. This was revealed to us by one able man from Azerbaijan. He went to the University of the Gambia in 2017. He was a visitor. And in that visit, he found us at the auditorium at the University of the Gambia. And he went in front of the auditorium. He stood in front and he asked, "Come and have." But unfortunately, many of us are just sitting down, opening our mouths. Until one gentleman sitting in front was able to go and grab the envelope, and we were all dumbfounded. So here, what is the lesson? The lesson is simply to say, Africans, we need to be rigorous in our thinking. We need to be critical. It is rather unfortunate that in Africa, when you are very critical, when you are very rigorous, you are considered rude. You are considered a rude person or a disbeliever. So therefore, way forward for Africa may not only to celebrate the past events of the great sons of Africa, but to reason along so as to move the day that we call African liberation, so that it will go from strength to strength, and not only to be looking at pictures, but to be listening to historical implications. Besides, Africans, it is time for us to upgrade Africa. But how do we upgrade Africa? We should be able to identify what our needs are. It's not like bringing warplanes like B-52, not the missiles, not the long-range rockets. That's not what we need. Africa is endowed with resources. These resources are all over. One of it is our fertile land. Our fertile land is rich enough. Not to mention some of the resources, which is even bringing war to the doorstep of Africa. That is our natural resources. What is the fight in Sudan? What is the fight in Mali? Of course, the presence of uranium, mica, oil, diamond, just to mention a few. So Africa, must we sit down Must we sit down and look at everything just like that? No, we need to wake up. We must get out of slumber and make sure we do what is necessary. To remind you again, even though I said I'm not going to bring any history chapter, but to remind you quickly, Africa was once an agrarian, just like Britain, the Asiatic countries like China, India. But when the wind of change came in the 1850s, Great Britain were able to emerge with their industrial revolution. Gradually, other European countries followed suit. Also, China, India gradually followed. And today, they are also among countries that are industrialized. What is Africa waiting? What is Africa waiting? I want to ask this question. Is Africa able to define its interests? If yes, then what happened to development? If you look at Africa, we are characterized with low income, poor standard of education, environmental hazard, so many illness or sickness or diseases. This is what Africa is facing. And looking at these characteristics, if we allow them to engulf us, then it means Africa will remain dormant. And the development we need is a sustainable development, not a development that you will start after getting your learning. Before you get your fat mother, the development disappears. That is not the development we are looking for. Africa needs to go forward from strength to strength. In fact, if I want to look at development, I believe that development would require us to develop economically, socially, politically, and environmentally, but with sustainability. This is what is published by IMF in 2015. A reminder, African Liberation Day marked freedom of African states from foreign rule, but which was not an easy journey. It was wrought with loss of lives, discrimination, unlawful arrests and detentions, intimidation, just to mention few. However, must we always be banking on the colonial past as our problem? It is high time for Africans to wake up and make sure we do what is required. How do we do that? We must be able to define where our interest lies. That is one of the ways to move forward. On that note, I would want to seize this opportunity just to take 1 minute of silence to remember the great sons of Africa who tried to make sure to liberate Africa. And please, Mr. LP, I want you to give me that opportunity. I want everybody to just take 1 minute, wherever you may be, just to remember the great sons of Africa. For example, Ameka Cabral, Kelly Selassie, etc. Just to mention few. Yeah, I want to economize time. So please, everybody, please 1 minute, wherever you may be. Thank you for your cooperation. Significance of the day. It cannot be overemphasized. However, we can summarize it. It's simply freedom from foreign rule, that is to be masters of our own. In other words, to lead our own way, not to be led by the West or whoever or whichever continent that may want to overshadow Africa. It's time to get out of political, economic, and social bondage. It's high time for Africa to stand up. And I have to acknowledge what other speakers said, Mr. Jobate, Mr. Ba, Mr. Dabo, if I'm right, Mr. Mbaye, sorry. I have heard clearly what you have said, and I'm actually in line with whatever you said. And that is the truth, that is the gospel truth. So therefore, we must remain with truth. But how do we bring out these truths to make sure Africa has the political realities, economic realities, social realities? That is now the question. How do we do that? Quickly, or finally, ways forward for further liberation of our minds are as follows. Planning. It is unfortunate that we think that planning belongs to only the Western people, and Africans are not part of planning. But if we take that as a notion, then it means we are going to remain failures. So planning is very important. As others, we are talking about philosophers. Those philosophers mostly come from Europe or from the Western world. It is rather unfortunate that in Africa, even if we have, they are not published. They are not published, but that doesn't mean that we are not clever. We are clever, but unfortunately, we are not actually pushing what is necessary. Willingness. To remind you, I'm looking at the ways forward to liberate the minds of Africans. So second is willingness. Without willingness, nothing can be achieved. No matter how physical you may be, no matter how intelligent you may be, but willingness is what matters. Honesty and truthfulness is now lagging in our society. Let us not forget about our traditional norms and values. We have been taught since we were children. But why is it that today most of us are not speaking the truth? Why is it that we are not honest? Example, our politicians who we run after. They are taking us as commodities. And we are accepting that. We are not asking questions that are pertinent to development. Next, we must have love. Love for Africa. That we have love for Africa is just a lip service. It's just a yes service. Are we ready? We are not ready. We are not ready. If we are ready, the love must be shown. Where's the love? I don't see it. A continent you love being characterized with low income, poverty, discrimination, just to mention two. The problems of Africa cannot be overemphasized. Next, I move to self-determination. Africans, if we are really self-determined, why the inferior complexity? Let's look at the international organizations like United Nations. To what level can we see our representation? It's like we are there for lip service, yes service. That is what Africa as a continent is doing with United Nations. We are not asking important questions to bring political realities, to bring the economic realities, and as well as social realities. Again, I would advise each and everyone to institute toleration. Toleration is very important. Africa has a lot of intoleration, and toleration is what we need. That is to live side by side peacefully, to make sure together we develop, together we enjoy the prevalent peace and harmony. Next, as a way out to liberate the minds of Africans, that is term limit. This may not affect you directly, students. However, it is very important. The stakeholders must all pay attention. We must make sure that we restore what has been lost or destroyed. Africa has undergone so many political upheavals. It is time for cooling. It is time for cooling. And to make cooling, time limit would be very important. Finally, trade among member countries of ECOWAS. I would want Africans to institute that to counter the multilateral corporations that are in Africa. Example, we have ELF, CEL, Total, etc. Such are the multinational corporations in Africa that are trying to make us poor economically. How do they do it? That is, they can come with just $3 million. Within a few years, they'll go home with trillions. And what doubts me, that is, when they come with these multinational corporations, once they leave, the corporations, they die. Does it mean that we are not clever? No, they know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. They know where their interest lies. We are the biggest fools. I'm sorry for that language. We are the biggest fools. So it's high time Africans, we wake up, stand up straight, know where our interest lies, so that we can develop modern Africa. To save time, I would love to stop here. Thank you for your kind attention.